We welcome today Pam Gregory, who is a world-class astrologer. She's the author of two best-selling books, the curator of probably the best cushion collection on the whole of the internet, and she runs probably the best, loveliest YouTube channel ever.
Thank you.
So welcome, Pam.
Thank you. Delighted to be here with you, Toby. Thank you.
Your YouTube channel has just hit how many subscribers?
250,000 subscribers.
Wow.
It's a constant surprise to me, honestly. I mean, I'm just very grateful.
Yeah, what's the secret to your success? Because I'm subscribed to one channel and it's your channel. I just can't get enough of it, really. So why do you think people love your channel so much, and you as well as a person?
I honestly can't fathom it. I suppose I'm just a very simple being yes, I've got a lot of astrological knowledge, of course, because I think I've been doing this for lifetimes, but I'm actually a very simple being who loves to throw sticks in the stream for my neighbor's dog. And, and maybe it's that kind of simplicity that comes with that I'm just very grounded and I share what interests me. And at the moment I feel and I'm going to be talking about this at Romsey on Saturday, I feel like I'm on this wild detective hunt as synchronicities are dropping in, and I just really share what interests me, whether it's cosmology or philosophy or psychology or whatever it is. And other people seem to enjoy that too and come along for the ride in that detective story, because I think we're into big leaps in our understanding, and that's what fascinates me. The deep space planets, the Kuiper belt objects, our whole understanding of the cosmos changing. So I just really do what interests me, and luckily it seems to interest other people too. And I guess because I honestly try to be non-commercial. I kind of wince at celebrity. I wince at commercialism. I just really want to be a simple, genuine person putting across the astrological message, really, and not involving myself in it too much. I'm just a messenger. I'm just a messenger for the information. And maybe that helps as well.
Yeah, I think that's the key,
I don't know if that made
really.
sense to.
Oh no, totally. And you've got 250,000 subscribers. I don't think I've ever heard you say smash the like button. I don't think.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
So you could have a
I
million.
would never do
that.
that. Not interested.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would never ever do that. And that's why I kind of wince from that kind of side of it. I'm just the messenger. I'm just the messenger for the astrological information, because that's what helps people.
Definitely. And I mean, that's what I like about your channel personally, because I was having a bit of a sort of moment in 2021, I think it was, where the timelines just, I could not see beyond what was going on. It got a bit dodgy, let's face it. And then you came along, I saw your channel. And I think from my point of view anyway, and I'm sure everyone else from who I've talked to, you deliver positivity in a world it was increasingly getting pretty dodgy. I'm not sure it's there now, but it was at the time. And also like reassurance, I think, which is really important. I mean, I don't know the first thing about astrology, but from what I got from you, it's just like, it's going to be okay. And then you've got that amazing British accent, which really sort of it does make things look genuine, and you are genuine. So it really kind of brings the whole lot through.
Oh, bless you. And I think the Americans love a British accent, so that probably helps as well. But I genuinely feel that the energy is changing so much, and it's something I talk about all the time, that is enabling a very different future going forwards. And Toby, because you're in our local community, how fast we are creating as a community. Not a huge number of us, but we are creating fantastic things at speed. And people are doing this all over the world. They write to me all the time saying, we've bought land, we're growing food. So get onto that momentum. Why would you be on the misery train if you can be on the happiness train? I mean, it's a simple choice, isn't it? And the more you're on the happiness train, the more your automatic default in your neural network will be positive.
Definitely. And I mean, as you said, there's so many positive people sort of in the different networks and things that I'm around anyway, and you are as well. And it's just lovely to have that community, because it's very important for humans to connect like that. We're sociable beings. And there was a very good reason we were all split up recently, obviously. And in terms of your channel, I mean, we've touched on your wonderful British accent. What I wanted to do is find a little bit more out about Pam Gregory. And someone told me the other day, quite long ago, I think, you used to be a Geordie.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. If anyone doesn't wants to know what a Geordie is, then Google Ant and Dec or Cheryl Cole, by the way. What happened?
Yeah, it's really interesting because my family were quite poor. I mean, I lived in a very poor area of the northeast. If anybody knows Geordieland, it's not at all a wealthy area. But I was lucky enough at the age of 7 to win a scholarship to a very academic school in Newcastle upon Tyne. And the other girls there were all sort of daughters of doctors and dentists and architects, and nobody could understand me because my accent was so broad. I mean, they were really struggling. Teachers were struggling to understand me. So they gave me free elocution lessons. And my life changed from that point. Because I think if I was still speaking kind of impenetrable Geordie, I wouldn't be getting the message across as because it's even, some of it is Viking vocabulary, from the original Viking invasions in that area. So it isn't just the accent, it's the actual vocabulary which is different. You gan hjem the na hinny, means are you going home now, which is very close to Danish now. So it's pretty dense if you're not tuned into it. So I am so grateful I had those elocution lessons. And I've forgotten, so long ago, I can barely say anything in Geordie now. But yeah, that's the story. Changed my life.
All I've got is why I pet. That's as far
Why
as
I
it goes.
pet, yeah.
Yeah, why I
Why I
pet.
pet, why I eat again, man. That's
My
quite close to the Danish. Yep.
my mum's ex-partner Bob was Geordie, and sometimes I'd just be sat, I'd go, what?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So
Um, what age were you when you finished that school? And what happened then? Because you studied in Oxford, I think, at some point, but that's probably a
I
lot
studied
later
in
on.
London. I left school at 18 after my A
Mhm.
levels, and then I took a year out and I spent a lot of time traveling all around North America. I was traveling on my own, down to Mexico, sort of slept on a hammock on the beach in Mexico, very near. Well, that was in Tulum, which was just nothing then. It was just Mayan and Incan relics. There were no hotels there. So I spent a lot of time there, went out on the local bus with the peasants and the ducks and the geese to Chichen Itza. You didn't even have to buy a ticket, you just wandered around, and it was amazing. So I spent several months, I spent about 7 months doing that, worked a little bit, and then started university in London School of Economics, which was quite a hotbed at that time for radical people. Because I think I was quite a radical person then, and then after that, I was determined, because from about the age of 16, I was determined to emigrate to Canada, to Toronto, and I'd written to Canada House and said, I'm going to emigrate to Canada, and they said, well, you have to wait till you're at least 18. But I finished university, and the next day got on a plane to Toronto with $100. No mobile phones, didn't know, in those days, didn't know anyone, and just started a whole new life in Toronto with $100. And it was a great adventure. I absolutely loved it, and ended up getting Canadian citizenship, which I still have, although it's not the place to go at the moment. But yeah, it was a huge adventure. I lived there for 5 years. It was fantastic. The first few months were quite wild because I ended up staying in very cheap and pretty dodgy places, looking back, and I didn't realize how dodgy they were at the time. But anyway, I survived all of that, and it was a huge adventure.
And when you've been trekking in the Himalayas and stuff, you've been traveled quite a lot, haven't you?
I've traveled
When was that?
huge. We're so lucky in our
Mm,
generation that there was so much freedom. So
mm,
after the winters got to me in Toronto, because it's kind of 6 months and it can get down to -40, it's really savage, brutal winters. I decided to come back to the UK, but to break myself into a lower standard of living again, I decided to spend 5 months in India and Nepal. And again, I was traveling on my own, and I had to do a basic martial. Well, I didn't have to, but I did a basic martial arts course. So because I was traveling on my own as a Western blonde woman, I had to make sure I was okay, and I did have to use that a couple of times, which I was very grateful for. But I spent, once I got into Nepal, which was beautiful, and I was just hypnotized by the mountains. I went to a local trekking association in Kathmandu and just said, I'd like to spend several weeks trekking, and can I have some Sherpas? And so I had just a very tiny group. I think there were 3 or 4 Sherpas and porters, and off I went. And they didn't speak a word of English. And I spent about 5, 6 weeks trekking with them on my own, which now you think, gosh, is that a safe thing to do? Off you go with these, delightful, kind, wonderful Nepalese people who didn't speak a word of English. And it kind of seems insane now, but it was one of the best things I ever did in my life. We climbed to 19,000 feet through the Annapurna range, up in the snow. On the last ascent, the last big climb, the Sherpas woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they'd planned it so it was the day of a full moon, so we could. It was like walking on the face of the moon. So you had the moonlight on the snow, obviously, extremely cold. It was, during the day, well, but -10, -15, and often -40 at night. But we were trekking by the light of the moon up to 19,000 feet, and I will just never forget it. It was one of the great highs of my life. And when you start to come down from those altitudes, and I started to see, after several days, start to see the tiny Nepalese villages in the valley, and I thought, oh, I just don't want to come back to civilization. Heavy things, simple, living with the rhythm of nature, where you had to go to bed with the sun, you had to get up with the sun, because obviously you've got no electric light up there. And I just kept thinking, gosh, as human beings, we make life so complicated, when the real joy is being in rhythm with nature. I remember thinking that really clearly. Yeah.
And that's especially the case at the moment, isn't it?
Big time.
How old were you when you did that?
I was 26.
Right. Okay. So it wasn't long after your degree then.
That's right, because I'd spent 5 years in Canada. I literally emigrated the day after I finished university, spent 5 years in Canada, got citizenship, then flew directly out to Delhi and then Kathmandu. I mean, it was a huge adventure. I spent 5 months there. I really feel that I've had at least one past life there, maybe more. And I often see myself in my meditations as a monk in a silent order, in kind of orange robes, and I'm standing outside on the kind of wall of this monastery, and the sky is crystal clear. It's at night, the stars are pin sharp, in the blackness, and I just feel I could reach out and touch them. And I used to go out and just stare at the stars and the galaxy, and yeah, I've definitely, and I feel I was working in a silent order, and I was writing in those massive books with gold calligraphy in the silent order, and I've had such clear visions of it. So that's why those trips felt so profound for me. I was touching something, really deep in my soul, I think, reconnecting to something.
That's lovely, isn't it? That you've had that experience. Thank God for us, you're back, you didn't stay there.
Yeah, well, yeah, the amoeba hit me pretty hard, but I'm still here. Yeah, absolutely.
And where else have you been? You've traveled elsewhere, have you?
Yeah, really.
Other countries, because Mexico sounds brilliant.
Yeah, spent a lot of time in Mexico, a lot of time in North America, obviously lived in Canada for 5 years, traveled all over the Middle East, also all over Australia. When I was working, running my training course for 20 years, I was going out again on my own to train management people in, Kuala Lumpur for a month, in Delhi for a month, in New York for a month. So I was traveling all over the world on business, but I've traveled hugely personally as well, and a lot of it just on my own. And we were so blessed, Toby, to have that much freedom. So blessed. You just bought a ticket and got on a plane and off you went.
Yeah, and I think a lot's changed since then, hasn't it? Especially with regards to kind of the built, like rural areas being built up, and I'd imagine Mexico is a totally different place, you know, or most of South America actually, for that matter, and a lot of the Middle East, and to some extent India. There's plenty of places to hide still in India, I think. Uh, but it would be lovely to. I'd love to go back in time and look at all the megaliths and things like that. Especially in, I mean, they're all over the world, and that'd be amazing.
Yeah, and I think they're more to be discovered actually
Yeah,
as we move forwards. And you know, before commercialism arrives, they are incredible places to visit. Because of course, thinking of Mexico, the Mayan culture was highly astronomical. They built observatories on top of the pyramids. And the pathways inside the pyramids are almost identical to the Egyptian pyramids because they incline at 23.5 degrees. So that is the perfect angle from which to see the eclipses. So you've got echoes between Egyptian pyramids and Mayan
yeah,
pyramids, when apparently, you know, no travel could be made through those huge distances at that time, but nevertheless. So yes, they were very evolved astronomically and astrologically actually at that time.
yeah. Most cultures were, though. I mean, I've studied Graham Hancock's work for
Yeah,
one, and I mean, it's the similarities, especially when you look at it in the language of maths. They all
yeah,
link up. Do you know what I mean?
absolutely.
They all link up, and they're all very similar to some extent, with regards to design. You know, how they manufactured it, and yeah. So it's interesting to say the least, and it's definitely pushing the timeline further and further back.
It is.
And yeah, what's interesting is because it doesn't fit in with current history, they just won't accept it, which is the whole belief system thing we're witnessing with other areas, let's say. So yeah,
But no, I think all of that is going to come to light in a bigger way. You know, our true origins, and our true origins being galactic. And I believe it was the Galactics who brought the inspiration for the pyramids to Earth, and they built the pyramids in astronomical and astrological language because they believed that would be a universal language, not to build them in, you know, English or French or Spanish, but to build them with astronomical and astrological language that we would ultimately, further down the road as we are now, understand how they were trying to communicate with us, because we are going to step back into that galactic citizenry. We're on the edge of that right now.
I
And
can't
that's
I can't wait, as I'm sure you can't either. So it's very exciting. And I've said to a few people I've already talked to, it's very nice to helicopter up a bit and just watch it all unfolding. It's going to be sort of a few years, I would say, maybe a few hundred years. I don't know. So it's
I think it's
interesting.
going to be. I think it's going to be close. I think our whole method of air travel is going to revolutionize. I think the way we've traveled by air, Pluto moving into Aquarius, is going to wither for many obvious reasons. But other forms of transportation that are even faster, more efficient, able to go much further are going to arrive. I mean, there's already an airport being built just outside Coventry for flying cars and flying taxis right now. It was started, I think, in 2021. But also, I think ultimately we're going to be teleporting. We're going to be teleporting. We're going to be able to think ourselves and arrive there. And I don't know how far away that is, but all of our abilities are going to just jump. You know, so from where we are now, really starting this week, there's so many massive things happening this week, and I'll be talking about those at Romsey on Saturday, that I think our evolution, our human abilities are going to become superhuman faster than we realize, and we're all on individual timelines with that. But I think we've got some really exciting times ahead of us.
That's good. Funnily enough, this is what we were going to talk about originally. And I don't know if I've told you about this, but I spent a few hours just looking into Tesla, old Nikola Tesla, and Newton, and all sorts of things like that, looking at the basis of what's going to happen going forward. And then I ended up looking at moon landings, 9/11, because I was on BitChute. And I realized it's kind of egotistical of me to try and find out all this stuff and irrelevant. And then I thought there's two, I could just be in the now and not really worry about what's going to happen. It's a very tricky time to kind of to turn off from the potential goings on, isn't it? And
Not for me. Not for me. I'm completely turned off from them, actually. I refuse, you know, I haven't listened to the news for years.
Mhm.
My frequency jumped when I stopped listening to it because, you know, how much of it's true anyway? So
Yeah.
why do we spend time listening to something that may or may not be true? So what I try and walk my talk rather than having the any daily reality imposed upon me by the nightly news. I choose my reality as I wake up, and I dominate my days with that reality. I choose to be happy, I choose to be joyful, I choose to be peaceful. And if that's what I'm emanating as a frequency, I'm going to, because everything in quantum physics, everything in our reality has to be a frequency match. You can only experience things that you are on the same frequency of. And so if you're broadcasting love, joy, peace, those experiences, those people, those circumstances are going to bounce back to you as your reality. And that's how you create a joyful reality. And I honestly believe that to a large extent, if we do that as individuals, we're bubble wrapping ourselves from the worst excesses of the chaos and hubbub. And, you know, we're going to go through a lot at the 3D level this year, hell of a lot, because we're going to be going through a massive amount of demolition of thousands of years, hundreds of years, thousands of years in a very short period of time. So we're going to be able to see it, to observe it, but keep your emotion, your feeling particularly in a good place, because then those experiences can't find you so easily. You're kind of almost invisible to the bad news. Am I making sense?
Yes.
There's no frequency match there. There's no frequency match. So, but if people go into fear and terror and anxiety, you're quantum entangling with it. And you're saying, okay, you know, bring it on. I want more fear. I want more panic. I want more awfulness. That's easy. You're going to get it. There's 10 tons of it out there. So it comes back to our own discipline with our thinking and our emotion of, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to create my reality. And honestly, I'm not just making this up. I truly try and live like this. And because I'm a simple being and I spend a lot of time in nature, that's my reality. That's my sanctuary. And I tend to, you know, yes, I'm very lucky. I don't have to work in an office or a hospital, but I've also created that reality.
Yep, you certainly have. And 250,000 people appreciate it as a
Oh,
result.
bless you, bless you, bless you. But you know, bless you. You know, I kind of noted that yesterday, but I never talk about the numbers generally,
Mm.
and it's okay. Whatever happens out there is okay. If it helps people, that's absolutely fantastic. That's what I'm doing. Why I'm doing what I'm doing, just to try and help people in my individual way. And we've all got a special role to play. We're all unique, all individual.
Yeah. And you do work very hard. Your lifestyle allows for that as well, I think. And you're at a lot of events as well, aren't you? But you kind of enjoy that, don't you? Like
Love it.
the
You know,
social side of it all, and I do too. It's great. What else do you do outside of going to events and talking on Zoom all day?
at work, yeah, lots and lots. I work really sort of 7 days a week, but the community side, which is so appreciated, has given a fabulous social side, because there's been a boomerang effect since lockdown. Because lockdown, so many of us, particularly if you live alone, you know, we were deprived of that human connection, which is so precious. Now we can't get enough of it. We're with like-minded people and we're having a ball. You know, it's wonderful to connect, whoever we are, whatever our status or title or wealth or job. It doesn't matter. We're all human beings at the end of the day. But apart from that, I walk a lot. I walk in the forest every day. That's sacred time for me, thinking time, ruminating time. I cycle quite a lot. I've done yoga for decades, very strong yoga. I love to think. I mean, that sounds like a really weird, odd thing to say, but I just love to think, and I get an idea that kind of electrifies me, and I think, wow, I've got to go digging down a rabbit hole. And I actually really enjoy that. And although ultimately it's work because it feeds back into some video I'm putting together, I think, wow, you know, that's really expanding my consciousness, that I've kind of stumbled across something that just makes me feel plugged into the mains. And so I know it's important. That's my kind of signature for, you've got to follow that. And so I'm on an even faster detective hunt, I think, at the moment. And I hope, you know, people can kind of join me and I don't just sound like some mad professor. but it feels, the energy feels very exciting because it's moving so quickly now.
Certainly is. And I mean, you're if anytime if you go to your house, there's books all over the floor in every single room, isn't there? So you're constantly
Nesting material here.
constantly falling over stuff, but
Yes,
at least you're reading it and working very hard.
yeah.
In terms of you said you don't do much, but you do, I think, in terms of going out, and you are a bit of a party animal when you get the excuse, aren't you?
Yeah, I just
Dancing Queen, I
love
believe you
to.
called yourself.
Yeah, I think again, boomerang effect from the lockdown. Just when I'm with a like-minded group and you don't have to chop bits of yourself off, to be able to relax and be you and dance and hug and have fun, it's just glorious. You know, it's so precious because we didn't have it. Um, and that is the glue that will keep communities together going forwards. You know, it's wonderful, isn't it? You just,
Yeah.
and in our groups at the weekend, you know, the fact that we can just laugh, and I love to laugh. I love to laugh, as you know, and laugh and hug and be joyful with essentially what is a family of frequency. Because I don't have any of my own family at all. I mean, at all, at all. And so this family of frequency is so precious to me. And I know it is to you and to many people. And we're all finding a really unique role, I think, in a way that we haven't done as clearly before. I mean, you've got a super unique role, Toby, with all your beautiful photography, and that, you know, that is wonderful because it creates memories for us. It creates memories for the group that are so magical. So we're all finding ourselves, I think.
That is nice, isn't it? When someone can just come into the group, they're like kind of, oh, like especially standing in the park, it's quite intimidating. It's any group is, but it's to an outsider slightly cliquey because everyone knows each other. But it's very nice when you can be in a group where what I like the best is you're not judged, and they're very, as you say, very high, mostly very high frequency, and some
Very
people,
positive.
everyone's got their jobs. Like I chatted with Bob Dibden last week, and you know, he's got his job. He's a connectarian.
He
he
is
sort of,
phenomenal at
he
that.
does all
He
the
is world
meetings and
class.
stuff. Yeah, brilliant. So, in terms of your astrology, was that in Canada? Was it? I think you did a course
Yeah,
or a night or something. You went to. I vaguely remember a video with you discussing that.
yeah. The first week I was in Toronto, I mean, it must have been a massive time of personal growth for me because, you know, I'd emigrated to a new continent. I knew no one. I joined a yoga class, another bit of personal growth, and yoga classes are silent. But at the end, two of the girls said that big chap from Jamaica, he's an astrologer, and I thought, wow. So I went up to him and said, look, I know nothing about astrology, but I'd love you to do my chart. And I went to see him a week later and spent 7 hours with him. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. It just, that the whole universe cracked open to reveal this whole dimension of meaning I'd never been aware of. And I was electrified from that point on. And I thought, I have to understand this. And it's not a psychic ability at all. I mean, I don't think I'm at all, you know, very psychic. It's a language. It's a language that takes years to learn. It's like learning French cubed or, you know, Spanish times nine. You know, that there are many layers to the rules and the language, but once you've cracked it, you start to read it like music. And so I don't think you can even be fully competent with it in one lifetime, actually. And I think I've been at this for several lifetimes, but there's something about creating pillars of meaning. You know, I almost think of a tapestry or a loom where we have these pillars of meaning that we as human beings normally are completely unaware of in our lives. But what we are doing once we understand our birth chart is we are weaving through our experiences, our events day to day. We are weaving the tapestry of our lives around those pillars of meaning. So you've got the kind of warp and the weft, as it were. And it's only really when you understand your birth chart, you can see the archetypes, the pillars of meaning that are operating in your life. And you think, wow, that was what was trying to express there. I could have expressed that in a much more positive way. So I don't do client work anymore, as you know, I just don't have time. But once you understand the archetypes in a birth chart, my job as an astrologer when I was doing client work was to help people live a bigger, better life, because I could explain to them how to much more positively express their unique music, express those archetypes, that unique pattern that they have in their lives, as opposed to tripping over the same old problem. And then it becomes kind of crystal clear for people how they're weaving their tapestry in this lifetime. And so that is a thrilling process. I wish I had time, but I just can't work any harder, so I don't have time. But it's a thrilling process. It's like holding sacred space when people can, in a moment, access their divine blueprint, which they'd never been able to see before so clearly. So there's a great feeling of validation and crystallization on the part of the client. And I love that, you know, to go deep with people. But, you know, unless I learn not to sleep at all, they're just no more, you know, because my task right now is to help the collective. That's where my knowledge can have the greatest impact, to help the collective, rather than just one-on-one people. Because, you know, a one-on-one client, that will take most of a day for me with the prep, etc. And I just don't have the time. But maybe that will come back in future, I don't know, but please don't write to me about that. But my task right now is to do whatever I can do to help the collective through this, the biggest evolutionary jump for humanity that we have ever done.
That's
We've ever
great.
met.
Brilliant. It's lovely to hear that. And did you ever find with do you ever find, do you need to know all the details of someone, but do you ever find you can do it empathically in some respects? You can work someone out with for
Yeah,
example,
although,
your business, you know, when you were doing business mentoring with
yeah,
CEOs and stuff.
yeah, I could suss quite a lot of it just from their energy. But
Yeah.
once you've got the date and place and time, I don't even have to know their real name. They can call themselves Fred. That doesn't matter. The date, the place, the time. I have an enormous amount of detail. I mean, in the birth chart, there are about 3,000 variables that I start with. So to prepare for a client, that's 4 to 5 hours prep, looking at
Yeah.
all the harmonics and the geometry, etc. So yes, I can pick up quite a lot energetically, but once I've got all the detail of the birth chart, I have got a ton of information. And, you know, normally with clients, I'd never met them, I didn't know anything about them, and just off you go over the cliff edge, trusting that the birth chart is reliable. And if it's not reliable, and people need to tell me that ahead of time, they say, I'm not quite sure of my birth time. Firstly, I'll dowse it, and then I will check back on events in their life where they have to give a black and white answer, like a parent died then, and you can't say, well, my father kind of died, you know, he either did or he didn't, you know, black and white. And I ask a whole series of questions. It could be, you know, you emigrated or you had your first child then or whatever, and with those black and white answers, I can then rectify the time. So the person, you know, so if somebody said in answer to those questions, yes, all of those things are correct, but they happened 6 months earlier, then I know the person is born about 10 minutes earlier than the time they gave me. And then once I rectify the chart, the whole thing works like clockwork, going forwards as well as backwards. And then I've got some really good information. And as I say, I wish I had time, but, you know, beam me up, Scotty. I just don't have any more time.
That's fine. I don't think anyone expects you to do individual readings. You might get offered lots and lots of money in the future. You never know.
Not
But
interested,
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
interested in the money,
Good.
the peace, and not being absolutely up against deadlines day after day after day. I mean, I turn down stuff all day long. Will I be a guest speaker here? Will I present here? Will I run a retreat in the Azores? Will I run a retreat in Sedona? No, I just want to do all I can possibly do, sitting at home in the middle of the New Forest in peace. And I'm putting out a lot of videos to the world. And that's the best use of my time right now. And I'm very happy doing that. But, you know, for a lot of my life, in my work, in my corporate work, particularly when I was running a training business, I was always under massive deadlines, massive pressure. You know, when I was training management people in India or Thailand, they knew I only had the hotel to go back to. So they'd keep me, you know, in the course room, in their offices for 10, 11, 12 hours a day. And so it was very demanding. And I just don't want to live with that kind of deadline and pressure. I want thinking time, because if I've got thinking time. I can go down rabbit holes to produce information which may be new to people, which will really help them. And I'll put it out to the world. You know, that is the best use of my time. It really is. And, you know, I just want to say a very big apology that I cannot answer all the emails. I just, before we hopped online here, there's an email from somebody saying, why won't you answer me? Well, the answer to that is I get about 2,000 emails a day before I start my day. You know, I'm terribly sorry, but it just isn't humanly possible with the volume that comes in to answer that. And please don't suggest I get a personal assistant, because that just doesn't work. If somebody's writing to me saying I've got transiting Mars, Sesqui, Quadrate Pluto in the 7th, ruling the 11th, a PA can't answer that. You know, it's all in my head. So please just forgive me if I cannot answer your email. I'm doing the best I can with the time available. It's said with love.
I don't see a problem with that, because everyone knows how busy you are generally. And I mean, I contacted you, you got straight back to me, and I didn't expect you to contact me at all, which is very lovely. And that's the reason I'm sat
You're
here right now.
You're very important, and I know you. So.
Oh, thank you. I wouldn't say very important, but we do know each other. So we're all important, I suppose, aren't we?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm working hard as I can as well, to some extent. I've got other commitments as well, but
you work very hard, Toby, because you do tons of stuff, you know, the group doesn't even see. So you work really hard.
Yeah. It's getting there. It's a 2030 thing as per the projects that you're doing at the moment, you know, and we'll all, if all of us come together, then it will help humanity. Hopefully, that's the idea.
And what's very important is it's just your state of being. Whatever you're doing for a job, if you're working in a bank, even your state of being is what infects the collective, because you can't stop your frequency broadcasting. It's impossible to stop that. So just by your state of being, living in love, living with kindness, you are doing a service for the collective.
Definitely. And you how long have you lived alone? Because you've been married, haven't you?
Yeah, I left my marriage about 18 years ago.
Oh, right.
And I was married for, well, we were together for about 19 years. And, you know, life's journey is filled with many stages, I think. And that marriage absolutely was a past life replaying itself. You know, the dance goes on, and I was very aware of that at the time. But you know, I'm very grateful that I had the courage to leave that, and that there's some very complicated circumstances involved with that. But I wouldn't have done all of the things I've done with my life, with my astrology, if I had, you know, I'm not sure I'd be on this earth now if I'd stayed in that marriage. So I'm so grateful I had the courage to exit and say, okay, I'm going to start a whole new episode, which has been absolutely joyful. And you know, thank goodness. And it's just getting better all the time.
Well, that's good. And do you still have family in Newcastle?
No family at all. Zero.
Right. Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, literally zero.
Yeah. Someone did say that, and I thought you might still have connections up north, but
no, not anymore. No, they all passed away a long time ago. So yeah.
Okay, so you got the New Forest family.
Yeah.
And you got your dog, next door's dog.
Yeah, love him. Absolutely love him.
You've got a lovely garden. Do you do a lot of gardening? Because that's really nice, isn't it?
No time.
No?
I like it to look nice, and I like to look at it, but no time and virtually no knowledge. So yeah, I love it. But yeah, I love my morning walks with my neighbour's dog. You know, we tell each other cat jokes, and I'm his second mum, and that's very precious to me, because I don't again have the time to have my own dog. I love animals, I adore animals, but I would feel guilty if I had my own dog still, because again, they need a lot of attention. I used to have a very dog-centered life, and there just again isn't time for that. Maybe in future it will change, because I really love animals, and dogs and horses in particular. Yeah.
Same here.
He fits the bill right now.
I want a dog, but I'm not allowed one yet.
So great fun.
Yeah. With regards to, I mean, we've gone through quite a lot, actually. If we could go back to when you were 20, after, let's say, when you moved to Canada, and you could literally stand in front of a 20-year-old Pam Gregory, what would you tell her? What would you say to her?
Wow. Well, I was actually 21 when I emigrated. I would say, which I actually fulfilled. I'd say, be brave, be courageous, step out, live your own life. And actually it started then, because I'd emigrated on my own with $100 in my pocket. So, and with all the travel I did, I mean, immense amounts of travel, I think I did that. I did that. And really, my marriage became a very different episode. But that taught me other things along the way. So yeah, I think I've lived that side out. I think what has been shortcut, I think there've been a lot of personal sacrifices in order to focus on my work so fully. And I'd like to rebalance that, because it's kind of 90% work, 85%, 90% work. And that balance needs to be rectified a little bit. But yeah, I think I've lived out the adventure for sure. Not to say there are not more adventures to come.
I was going to say that. What have you got planned for the future, do you think? Or is you just living in the now? And
Yeah, living in the now. But I
yeah,
think we are going to be shown and offered so many amazing opportunities with these energy shifts. These energy shifts are huge this week, and they're unimaginable right now. You know, we may well be able to start to do some space travel in our lifetimes. I think that's extremely likely with Pluto moving into Aquarius. That will revolutionize aviation, because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and in myth he was the sky god, so it's all to do with the skies and aviation. The connecting to the galactic beings in a much bigger way, reconnecting, remembering all of that. I think that is going to be an adventure which we've never had in this, that we can remember in many, many lifetimes. And I think that is going to be thrilling. So I think there's going to be a whole different quality of adventure than we've had in this 3D lifetime. And yeah, bring it on, because it's going to come quickly. But please, 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 talking to people, make the natural organic choices, because there's kind of no middle way at the moment, is my feeling, that you either go into fear, follow the narrative, you know, do what you're told, go into fear, believe it all, or you say, I'm going to create my own reality and go in a different path. But there's not much middle ground right now. Am I making sense, Toby?
oh, totally, yeah, yep.
There's not much middle ground. So you think you've got to be very acutely aware of where you're putting your thinking and your energy day to day.
I think that's combined with people being a bit more. People are getting more information about things that just don't add up, you know. And I was looking at a video today actually of Elon Musk, because I've always had an interest in future technology. Like I've read tons of books on it, like what happens when AI does all the jobs, or Michio Kaku's Future of Humanity, books like that. I've just had this outstanding like interest in it, and I've always said to people, like, you know, as you said about teleportation, potentially building stuff from the atom up, like in Star Trek, because theoretically everything is real, isn't it? Yeah. And it would be just lovely to be able to just teleport myself to the Bahamas for the day and just chill out, you know, have a few cocktails. Wouldn't that be good?
Oh, sunshine, blue skies.
Yeah. Wouldn't even need to fly, you know. I would like to fly at some point, but teleportation is a lot easier, I think. So as long as you all end up in one piece.
Yeah, I think, you know, all of that stuff is closer than we think.
Yeah,
I think we will start to access very different methods of travel, big travel, space travel, in our lifetime for sure.
Well, it's been lovely talking to you today, Pam. I'm not sure I've covered everything because I wasn't quite sure which direction we were going, and but it's been really interesting getting to know you better, and to not talk too much about the astrology and the sort of goings on in the world, and because it's quite rare to actually hear an insight into you, because you do give out so much, and I think people would be really interested to watch this video.
Yeah, bless you, Toby, because I'm actually a very, very private person. You know, I don't talk about myself personally because it's not relevant to other people in terms of helping them. You know, what's relevant to them is how can I help them astrologically. So, but I am very much a very private person. I like to, and that's why I kind of pull back from any kind of, you know, press the like button or celebrity. I really wince. I'm just the messenger.
Thank you so much, Pam. Have a lovely afternoon, and I look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Yeah, fantastic. Really enjoyed the conversation, Toby. Lots of love, and thanks for all that you are doing in the world as well. We've all got our, piece of the puzzle. So thank you.
Cool. Cheers.
Lots of love, everybody. Bye.